control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Paranormal Portal. It's just a bite-sized portion of the Paranormal Mayhem tonight because I'm actually alone here. There's nobody in the studio with me that I can see anyway. I mean, we always run the risk of there being several things in the studio with me, but Don's not here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. He'd gotten tied up with some other things, so I'm sure it had nothing to do with his basement. So I've used that joke in like every promo I've run for the show because, you know, if you know the show, you know Don, you know about the basement. And that's all kinds of paranormal all by itself. But I hope you guys are all ready because it's time for the Paranormal Portal. Ha 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 ha. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again. This is just me. Don's not here tonight, but I'll do my best to fill his shoes while he's not here. Fill both of our shoes, as it were. So it's just going to be me, but the lines will be open, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to call in, I guess I should probably actually connect to him. Derp. I was sitting here like, 5 or 10 minutes before the show started just thinking, I got everything done. I'm all good to go. And then I forgot one of the most fundamental things. So let me just connect quick. And we are now live on the phone lines, ladies and gentlemen. So we are connected and good to go. But a little piece of good news, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like that name issue, dispute, etc. with the launch of the podcast is now behind us. So the official launch will be next Monday, the 29th, for the Paranormal Portal podcast. So be sure to check all the places that you go to get your podcasting. Really excited about that. Just got the news today and just ironed out the last few details. So I'm absolutely pumped. It was just like, hurry up and wait there for a while. And then to find out somebody else was using the name, it was just like, no, but, the way that stuff works with trademarks is, a lot of the legality is established by first use. And our first use went back to April of 2016, whereas they first started using it last August. So They were pretty recent to the Paranormal Portal party, and I don't think that they were being malicious or creepy about it. I just think either they stumbled on the name somewhere or they just came up with it themselves. I mean, I don't pretend that nobody else could have come up with the name Paranormal Portal. I think there's a level or something about the Paranormal Portal in a Mario game or something like that, or Donkey Kong. I don't know, not Donkey Kong, but it's like Mario. I think there's a Paranormal Portal that you can go through. So, and I'm not a fan of Mario, so I didn't get the name from there either. But since I've been researching the name in the years since I've started the show, I came across that and I was like, oh, well, sounds like I'm a Mario fan, but it just came to me. So, but anyway, that's all straightened out. The podcast will go live Monday. It'll be up again, another episode on Wednesday and another episode on Friday. So we're doing 3 a week, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope you guys will help support that because I'm really excited for that. It's really potentially going to be great things for the show and for, it'll certainly expand our reach. And special thanks to Wes from Sasquatch Chronicles for helping me pull all that together. That's just amazing. And, there's like Duke and Wes have just been phenomenal people for us here on the show. And I'm really humbled and honored to be, in any way associated with either of them. But it's really cool. So the last hurdle has been jumped, and it looks like we're on our way to the finish line for the podcast launch. So next Monday, I don't know what time of day, but I guess when I find out, check Paranormal Portal radio page on Facebook, and as soon as it goes live, I'll be sure to post that it's live so you can look for it if you don't mind. I'd sure appreciate it. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is a mayhem episode, and I wanted to get to some things right off the bat. I got a few things pulled up. I came across this really creepy video, and it's from a Reddit post, but a site. I'll get into it in a little bit, but it's some pretty good footage. I don't know if I'm actually going to show the footage, but I might show you a still frame of the footage and give you a link to go check it out by yourself, because I don't want to get any copyright strikes or anything like that. But I think that this video is pretty profound, and it potentially is some really amazing evidence of ghostly activity. So I will make sure to post that link as we go through the show when I get to that part. But I just stumbled onto that not 8 minutes ago, and I was like, whoa, that's cool. But first of all, I thought this was really cool for all of our UFO extraterrestrial fans in the audience, and maybe you all are, I don't know. But this I thought was pretty cool, and this article comes from, again, the singularfortean.com, and what they say is that the U.S. Navy patents triangular craft powered by quantum vacuum plasma. Wow. I'm not even sure what the hell that is, but apparently the Navy knows, and they're patenting it. So let me read a little bit of this article and talk to you guys about this. I think that's really amazing. But some of those lights in the sky, if they're patenting it, that means they've already got it. I think, or at least they've got a really good working concept of what they're patenting. But it says a recent patent filed by the U.S. Secretary of the Navy and approved by the United States Patent and Trademark Office shows the schematic design for a craft powered by quantum vacuum plasma. It almost gives me a headache to pronounce that. According to the patent summary, the present invention is directed to a craft using an inertial mass reduction device. Oh my God. The craft includes an inner resonant cavity wall, an outer resonant cavity, and microwave emitters. And the outer resonance cavity wall and the inner resonant cavity wall form a resonant cavity. And the microwave emitters create high-frequency electromagnetic waves throughout the resonant cavity, causing the outer resonant cavity wall to vibrate in an accelerated mode and create a local polarized vacuum outside the outer resonant cavity wall. What the hell does that mean? I don't know, but it sounds really cool. It is a feature of the present invention to provide a craft using an inertial mass reduction device that can travel at extreme speeds. So what is an extreme speed? My God. Yeah, I don't know what the hell this means. But it's one of the few things that I've ever read that I know less after reading it than I knew before I read it. It's like minus knowledge after you read something like that. You're like, wow. So the craft would generate high energy electromagnetic fields which interact strongly with the vacuum energy state. This interaction would give rise to an emergent physical phenomena based on the mechanism of transfer of vibrational energy. According to the patent, the transfer of vibrational energy further induces local fluctuations in adjacent quantum fields which permeate space-time. So I feel like I'm watching Star Trek here, folks. This is some bizarre stuff. It's like, they're talking to Scotty here and he's explaining the process. I don't know what I'm just reading, but it sounds really cool. But what do they define extreme speeds? It's not going to be like anything like terrestrial craft, obviously, that we currently are aware of. But my God. So everything that surrounds us, ourselves included, can be described as a macroscopic collections of fluctuations, vibration, oscillations, and quantum mechanical fields. The document explained matter is confined energy bound within fields, frozen in a quantum of time. Therefore, under certain conditions, the rules and special effects of quantum field behavior also apply to macroscopic physical entities. I don't know what that means. Again, this is one of those articles. I have no idea what I'm reading. I'm just doing my best to read it. This could result in the possible physical breakthrough in the utilization of the macroscopic quantum fluctuations, vacuum plasma field, quantum vacuum plasma, as an energy source. So, I don't know. Is that not cool, though? Or is that disturbing? I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Is this another example of some amazing reverse engineering of captured craft? Is this some bargained for technology and some weird trade between our government and these alleged extraterrestrial entities that are working in cooperation with our government? I don't know. Very, very strange. Very strange. But very exciting, though, too. I mean, so here's the thing. I think that I really do love technology, and not when it's has an effect or negative impact on the natural environment. Then I'm not so big on it. Like, we can burn coal and create energy, which is cool, but unfortunately it has apparently a lot of negative side effects, which is unfortunate, and hopefully we'll figure out better ways to do that. No, I'm not anti-coal necessarily, but I'm anti-pollution as much as I can be. But things like this, would it have any kind of negative side effect? So when they rev this up, is it going to tear holes in space, and all of a sudden weird things are going to be coming into your bedroom, or what? I don't know. Is this like a portal generator? They're going to switch it on and be like, yeah, we're going to go to the moon in 5 seconds. Oh, where'd that black hole come from? I don't know. This is weird stuff, and it kind of makes me nervous though at the same time, because I think that our sciences are not. I mean, they're incredibly progressive and growing, but is this kind of like the CERN thing, where maybe we're tapping into things that we ought to be tapping into? Is there a downside to this? Is there a negative to working on inertial plasma, quantum, whatever? I mean, what is the downside to that? What could happen? What do we need to be aware of? So, again, it gets to the idea of science. So, Duke, vortex torsion field technology goes back to Germany, World War II. Very interesting. Is that with the whole bell design? Is that what you're referring to, or is there another example of that being used in ancient or old Germany? World War II era, as it were. I don't know. Very strange. Pam, I listen to Dark Waters. I think he does a really great show, by the way. Wes says I have a potato for a phone. Otherwise, I'd call in. Well, there's no quality checks on this deal. If you want to call in, go ahead. I'm happy to hear from you. A potato. All right. So, I don't know, but I thought that was really, really interesting. What does it mean? How far does the development take for this technology to become, more common? I don't know. Will it ever be common in our lifetimes? I don't know. But that is really, really bizarre. And it just goes to show you. Okay, so here's the thing that I always think about when I was teaching IT back in a long time ago. I'd come across information back then that there was a gap in technology between consumer technology and military technology of about 30 years. So meaning that in, let's say it was 1995, roughly when I was doing this, it was 1995 or a little after. No, maybe it was more like 99, maybe 2000-ish. But anyway, there was a 30-year gap in technology. So meaning my home computer, which was like a Pentium 200, and I was really proud of it. But the military would have had like, quad core or more, and all of the technology we have today would have been coming out or would have been in military hands back then. So what we have in our home computers is at least 30 years, but I've heard that the gap has widened, that now it's more like 40 or 50 years difference in technology between what the military has or has at its disposal versus what you have in your home. So that's quite a huge gap. And what are they doing? What do they have that we won't even know of for 40 some years? That's what's freaky. But anyway, just food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. That's the kind of stuff that's apparently out there, and there's more out there, I'm sure. I mean, this is just something that finally trickled to the surface, and maybe this is old technology to them. I don't know. I don't think they have any need to really patent anything. Like if they want to use it for their secret space program or whatever, they probably don't bother patenting that stuff because it's not like somebody's going to figure it out because it's so far advanced. So if it hits the patent shelves, then they must be looking at more mundane applications for it, whereas they're already light years beyond that. Who knows? So just food for thought. But yeah, that's pretty wild. I really don't know what the hell I just read. That is not an exaggeration. TR-3B flying triangles were appearing over Belgium in the 80s. Yes. Yep. And then ladies and gentlemen, what Duke's referring to there in the chat is the TR-3Bs are the triangular UFO craft that most people believe are actually engineered and created by our governments or black projects or something. So, these things have been around for quite a while. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Wes says I'm running Windows 95 and the government is traveling back to the future getting a sports almanac. Yeah, I know. I mean, we're so far behind. All right. So anyway, let's continue here. But I thought that was a fun article. And I don't know what you think, but apparently also, ladies and gentlemen, Loch Ness's infamous Boleskine house, once owned by Aleister Crowley, is for sale. So if you ever want to own what would most likely be probably the most paranormally active property on the face of this world, you could own it yourself. Now, it does show a picture here, but as far as I know, that it's just a burned out ruin. That home had caught fire and was basically decimated. I don't know that anybody's rebuilt it. Oh yeah. Here's an active. I'm going to pull this over to the other screen and put it on the view for you guys. But here's the here's the house that's in question, and that was apparently owned by Aleister Crowley, and a lot of people believe that as he was doing the Abramelin, that he summoned the Loch Ness Monster. That's one of the legends that are going on, and this house is right on the shores of Loch Ness. Maybe true. I don't know. I don't know what the man was capable of, but there's a lot of apocrypha around him. But now here's the current state of this place, and as you can see, it is just a mess. Whatever it was here, and this is what you're buying now, ladies and gentlemen. It's definitely a fixer-upper. There's some real opportunity there for a handyman type. Get your hands on something. I don't know how cheap it would be, though, or how expensive. I don't know. I'm not sure what Scottish real estate goes for, but that there is a fine plot of land, I'm sure. If you like running from demons and having your furniture rearrange itself regularly, that is the house for you. So it's for sale, ladies and gentlemen. What are they saying? How much? Let's see. The house rests on the shore of Scotland's Loch Ness, famed for its monster sightings, and Crowley is said to have purchased the house in order to perform an elaborate ritual invoking his guardian angel. The ritual, which involved abstinence from sex and alcohol, and required Crowley to summon the 12 kings and dukes of hell in order to bind them and remove their influence from the magician's life. Crowley owned the house from 1899 to 1913. Following his ownership, it changed hands several times. Can't imagine why. And each time being marked by tragedy. Including one owner who used a shotgun to commit suicide in Crowley's former bedroom. Before being bought by musician Jimmy Page in 1970, Page himself was an avid occultist and follower of Crowley. Page sold the home in 1992, and the house changed hands twice more before being mostly consumed by fire in 2015. The house is listed for sale by the Galbraith Group, and according to the listing, the opportunity now exists to restore the house and grounds to create an outstanding property subject to obtaining the necessary consents. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. No price tag, of course, so we don't know how much it's going for. But if you'd like to own a piece of paranormal history, there you go. And that ritual that he was allegedly performing was the Abramelin. And as I understand it, he never finished it. So that's not good. That's not good to... apparently, it's like a at least 6 month to a year spell is what the Abramelin is. And it requires absolute concentration and focus for all of that time. And apparently he stopped before he finished it, which is in that kind of practice a really bad thing. That's not a good thing to not finish. So because essentially in spell casting and such, you are opening gateways, you're opening channels, you're opening conduits for powers. And if you don't finish that, then they can remain open or worse. So just saying, don't start something you're not going to finish. So that's the Crowley house. It's now for sale, and you could own the smoking ruins of what once was a cornerstone of occult lore. I could maybe be a listing agent, huh? So very cool. I don't know. Duke says no thanks. Zach Baggins will buy it. Yeah, maybe. I guess that wouldn't surprise me. I don't know how much cash Zach has, but I think he's probably doing pretty well. Could maybe put a down payment on it anyway. But crazy. Aleister Crowley's house on the shores of Loch Ness, ladies and gentlemen. So very cool. I think we've covered everything else on this site of note anyway. Let's see where we're at. Oh, God, this sounds terrible. This is coming from, ladies and gentlemen, mysteriousuniverse.org. And it's an article about a chupacabra kills 71 animals and drains their blood in Mexico. And this was an article from 420 of all times. So let's see what we can paraphrase from this. Again, the chupacabra is a weird thing for me because there's about 15 physical descriptions going on about what a chupacabra is. From this lizard-like quillback-looking thing that has like these sharp quills on its back, to a kangaroo-looking thing, to a coyote-looking thing, to, there's so many variations on what people are identifying as a chupacabra, and I don't, obviously they can't all be right, but I don't know. I don't know what they're allegedly supposed to look like, but the version from Puerto Rico was the more, I don't know, creature-ish looking thing with spiky back and weird fangs, and it would drain the blood. And chupacabra means goat sucker. That's the definition of that name. And it came about because people were finding these goats in Puerto Rico with puncture wounds and no blood, and a lot of dead goats that had no blood, but they had puncture wounds. So I don't know. I imagine there were some sightings along the way as well. And apparently it's not just in Puerto Rico anymore, ladies and gentlemen. It's kind of all over the Central and South America, as well as in allegedly the southern United States. So let's see what they're saying here. It was not a dog. It was something tremendous. So read the headline in Mexican newspaper El Mexicano this week as farmers in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, reported the discovery of over 70 animals brutally mutilated by an unidentified yet eerily familiar creature. Has El Chupacabra claimed another victim? Or 71 victims? It says it's possible that that is. If the chupacabra exists at all, whatever killed these farm animals, it wasn't messing around. Local farmer Don Simplicio Martinez says that on the evening of March 28th, 20 adult sheep were mutilated and left bloodless without a single drop spilled on the surrounding ground, all while their killer evaded detection. Weeks later, Martinez was horrified to discover that the unidentified creature had seemingly returned, this time for his chickens. The beast had to climb a 6-foot wall, chicken coop, and peel back the metal wire protecting the chickens before gorging itself on the blood of 51 of the hapless little dinosaur relatives. The hapless little dinosaur relatives. Either it climbed or it flew, Martinez told the authorities surveying the ruins of his coop. A night watchman posted at Martinez farm heard the commotion when the mystery creature was sucking the blood from the terrified chickens, but reportedly decided not to intervene with his machete once he saw how large the predator was. Apparently he figured a machete just wouldn't do. Local veterinarians apparently believe that a large canine was likely the culprit in these unexplained mutilations, but Martinez isn't convinced. The wounds of the sheep are like triangles in the jugular, but without blood, with nothing. He said it's not a normal animal because I imagine it's a huge animal to remove the blood of 20 sheep. That's a lot of blood. Well, what if it was more than one? I think they're making an assumption here it's one thing. But what if there's a whole bunch of chupacabra? I don't know what the plural for chupacabra is. But that, if it's dropping 20 sheep, it's probably not one thing, because it would have to be about the size of a T-Rex, I would think. And I'm sure they would have noticed that coming and going. So if it's draining that much blood, I think you got more than one of those things on your hands. In February and March 2019, El Chupacabra was blamed first for the brutal murder of a day laborer and later a teenage boy who was found dead after a dance party. Eey. It is the infamous goat sucker truly on the loose in Central America? Or is this popular element of folklore merely a convenient scapegoat for any unsolved murders of either animals or humans? I don't know. That's creepy. That's all kinds of creepy. Huh. Oh, no, that's fine, Wes. You can call in anytime, brother. I'm always happy. I'm just winging it. I don't have Don here to bounce off of, so I'm just finding stuff to read, which is mostly what I do on the show. But yeah, you're welcome to call in whenever you want. Yeah, it's hilarious. I don't know, but I wonder, what is the chupacabra? What is this thing? So I don't think it's probably just one, though. Again, I think they've got a few of them if they lost that many animals. But scary, creepy stuff. So cool. Let's see if there's anything else on this page to go over. That's interesting. There's an article here by Nick Redfern. I like Nick Redfern. I don't know him personally, but I've seen his work many times over the years. He does a great job. He's quite a cryptozoologist and researcher. But let's see what he says. He's talking about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and a bizarre mystery. Not sure what that would be. Let's find out together, shall we? Over the last couple of decades, I've spent a lot of time digging into matters relative to Bigfoot, the Men in Black, the Chupacabra, or Roswell, and lake monsters. But back when I was in my early teens, I was exposed to something else. It was as chilling as it was downright bizarre, and it was something that occurred just a short drive from where I lived in central England, namely the village of Pelsall, Pellsall. The origins which hark back in time to the 10th century. Let me just try to paraphrase what he's talking about here. He's talking about Pelsall. In late 1903, a resident of Great Wyrley, Wyrley, a certain young man named George Adalji was sentenced to serve significant jail time for violently attacking horses in the area. Apparently the attacks were absolutely ferocious, and they were very deadly, and the entire populace was shocked. Both the local and national media covered the killings and reported extensively on Adalji's sentence. But was he really guilty of the crimes? Someone had suspected there was a major miscarriage of justice, and it was none other than Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Oh, so he actually showed up to help out. All right, so they talk about him writing the Sherlock Holmes stories, of course. Let's see, I just want to get to the meat of the story so that I don't, absolutely take his whole article, because that wouldn't be fair. I just want to get to the hot points. There was a number of valid reasons as to why Adalji may not have been the guilty party. Born in 1876 to a mother of Scottish descent and a father who was from India, George, along with the rest of the family, suffered from terrible racist taunts, some of which even came from the local police. The chief constable outrageously proclaimed black men were less than beasts. That's so tragic. Locals always viewed the family with suspicion. Anonymous letters were sent to the home. Yeah, I can't imagine that they were really that diverse back in those days, so that's really unfortunate. Living very close to where George Adalji lived decades earlier, like most of my family and friends, had heard tales of the animal mutilations of the Conan Doyle connection, and of the menace that the entire affair created in and around Great Wyrley back during the 20th century. But let's see, when is he going to get to the part? Well, that's interesting. Okay, so let's see. It says one of the strangest of all accounts suggested that the culprit was a large, monstrous, hypnotized ape. So we all know that there's allegedly wild man or Bigfoot reports coming out of England, even to this day. There's a lot of people that believe that they are there as well. Of course, they don't have the vast stretches of wilderness, but if I've learned anything about Bigfoot since doing this show, it's that they are incredibly adaptive, that they can scrape a living out of pretty much the most harsh of terrains. And without a whole lot of natural resources. So that is pretty wild. So he said, this is intriguing since Staffordshire has a long and controversial history of out-of-place apes and of British Bigfoot. So, yeah. A similar story in circulation posted that well-trained and aggressive boar were responsible. Well-trained boar. Large and violent birds of an unknown kind, possibly of what we today might call the Mothman kind, and even a wild and marauding cat were suggested. Now, that's interesting as well because, of course, England does have some legends of a large cat, and including some really compelling video evidence that somebody got. I'm sure Duke's going to know where this was, but it's in northern England, and somebody's out in this prairie area videoing, and they catch this black cat that seems to have this long tufted tail as if it's like a black maned lion. It just looks so incredibly similar to that. And I can't remember the specifics of it anymore, but I remember watching that video several times, and it was a pretty compelling video. I don't know if it's ever been debunked or not, but there is a lot of legends of large cats coming out of England, which I guess stands to reason, as I'm sure there were historically large cats there in the far distant past. But yeah, very crazy. So apparently Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was quite involved in helping to defend this person. Let's see, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. I can't really see what the outcome was from this article. The ocelot, Butter's ocelot, vanished under odd circumstances, although a second is rumored to have come into his hands a few years later. So I don't know. I guess at the risk of getting a copyright strike, I can't read the whole thing verbatim because I don't have permission to read it. So I was trying to paraphrase it, but it's the way he's written it, it looks like he's written it excellently, but I don't really see what the outcome of all this was. But very interesting. But I find some of the possibilities to be very intriguing because those legends persist to this day, of there being big cats in England and there being Bigfoot or wild men or something in England. So, all right, they have plenty of big cat sightings there, Duke is saying, assumed to be exotics owned by elites, which were released or escaped at some point. Oh, okay. Well, that stands to reason, I guess, that, if they were dukes or earls or whatever, they may have had these wildcats, because I'm sure with the colonies all over the place, they probably had access to all these fantastically exotic animals and brought them home as bragging rights or trophies, living trophies. And when it gets inconvenient, you just let them go, I guess. So there it is. Okay. Well, I didn't know that, Pam. I hope he's all right. I'm sorry. I'm just reading the chat as I go here as well. So very interesting. Yeah, the menageries. You're right. Right. Duke says menageries. That is true. And of course there's zoos. There's, zoos all over England, or at least in several places. And it's perhaps they had some escapes. I don't know. But I can't remember what that name of that video is, but wow, was it compelling. So I want to get to the weird video I found just before going on the air tonight. I think it's really incredible, and I found it on Twitter. Somebody linked it on Twitter, and it's coming from a site that reported on it was fatherly.com, and it says daughter shares video of dad being tucked in by a ghost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL and I'm going to paste it in the chat, and those of you that want to check it out, go ahead. It's a very, very quick video, so just open it in another window, but don't leave us. I don't want you to leave. But this video is really pretty compelling. Hi, Chris. Chris Guy, nice to meet you. I don't think I've seen you before, but welcome to the show. Hey, Aussie Tiger, good to see you. I suppose I should go through who's here. I haven't done that tonight, so, well, my list sucks. I got like 8 people in my list. So it says Aussie Tiger Rock fan, Black Tree, Duke is here, Chris Guy, Lady Death, Mr. Hetzelmer, Pam is here, I'm here, and Randall Electric is here. But I don't think that that's at all complete because I've seen chat flying by for quite a while here. Very interesting. But that's all I have on the participants list. I see there are 39 people watching right now, so thank you all for being here and watching the show. I hope I'm doing it as much justice to as I can, but it's sure you can tell when Don's not here. It's just a lot quieter, at least in the studio here. But yeah, so this video, what was captured is, the lady says on her Reddit post, my dad has been feeling his sheets being messed with and someone sitting on his bed in the night. So he set up a camera and this is what he saw. I'm freaked out. Look at the sheets lifting up and what comes out of the side of it. It like dissolves into thin air. And, it's really pretty creepy. It looks really, really bizarre. Really bizarre. You can see the dad's feet at the very foot of the bed, and then whatever the hell that is, it seems to lift the covers way up, and it's like it was trying to spoon him or something. I don't know what the hell's going on, but then it gets up, and you see like a head and shoulders, and then it pulls away, and as the blanket falls, you see this white mass that seems to just evaporate, like as if it's steam. So definitely check that out if you get a chance. Very, very creepy. And there's people asking if there's a longer clip. And they said that's not just him rolling over, pulling the sheets up over with his hand and kicking his legs. So yeah, people are asking for a longer clip, and maybe a longer clip would be more explanatory, but you do see... I don't understand what I'm seeing because it's really pretty compelling. Now I can't see. The part that's weird is that something seems to come up that has what appears to be a head and a shoulders that finally pop out of the covers, and then the head just kind of dissipates and as it's moving away from the bed. Very, very wild. It's not necessarily a conclusive video, but it's really intriguing. I don't know these people clearly. I don't know the equipment they're using or anything to that effect, but it is really weird. It's a pretty bizarre clip. So if you get a chance, click that link that I put into the chat and check it out. It's a very, very quick clip. But what Fatherly says about it, and perhaps they interviewed someone, anyone who doesn't believe in ghosts might change their mind after watching this webcam video, which one family captured of the ghost they claim is haunting them. The daughter shared the footage in a Reddit post that's now going viral. My dad's been feeling his sheets being messed with and someone's sitting on his bed in the night. So he set up a camera. And the woman wrote, I'm freaked out. Look at the sheets lifting up and what comes out the side of it. It like dissolves into thin air. In the video, which shows her dad sleeping, a corner of the sheet slowly rises up before what looks like a ghost head appears, and within seconds, it vanishes, and the sheets fall back down. Whether or not it's really some sort of paranormal activity is up for debate. Based on the comments, some people are doubtful, claiming that the ghost is really just their dad's elbow, but looks like he's laying on his side, and as he turns onto his stomach, stretches out his arm and kicks the sheets while he readjusts his legs, one person explains. However, others are completely convinced that it's a haunting, and he might as well just go ahead and throw the whole house away. One user commented, while another said, my worst F-word nightmare. I'd be sleeping on the couch with every single light on. So, okay. They're referring to the Michigan couple that caught the figure on the nanny cam, which we talked about a few episodes before. Really bizarre, really strange stuff. But I think, yeah, we put a link up during that show as well. So there is some good footage coming out. At least it's compelling footage, ladies and gentlemen. these are not paranormal investigators. These are not people with professional equipment. They're people with nanny cams and little, security cameras. And they managed to catch some pretty interesting stuff. So to expect professional results, like, oh, I need a longer clip, I need more angles, that's kind of ridiculous. These are just people trying to figure out what the hell's going on in their own house. So they're not professional investigators, and you can't expect that level of professionalism from somebody just rigging up a camera to see what's going on in their room. But I think the one with the nanny cam is still way spookier, but this one is really a good capture. It's at least a compelling capture. And if you haven't checked it out, maybe I'll freeze the video on the part where it's really up there. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to drag this over. If you haven't seen the video from the link that I put into the chat, here it is. And let me pull it up on screen. So here, the covers were absolutely up to this height before. Here's the guy's leg going up and onto his side, and then there's this. Now, I guess it's only 18 seconds long, so I'll just go with this until it dissipates. Let me just back up a few frames here. So this is how it was. Here's that head thing as it kind of appears. As the covers drop off of it, it looks like a shape. Now watch that shape as this pans, or as it moves. It just kind of fades. It just kind of disappears. And I get what the person is saying, that is really bizarre. And then it's just gone and the covers fall back down. So very bizarre. There it is going up again. Very strange. I'm not going to play the video in its entirety, but I'm giving you key clips to it so you can see what was going on there. That's a pretty good capture, and it is incredibly compelling, not definitive, but compelling, that there is definitely potentially something going on in that house. And I'd probably be saging. I mean, if it's tucking you in at night, that's a little creepy. That's a little weird. So, but I don't think even I would be okay with that. It's like, nope, now you're crossing a line. This is a little creepy now. So very wild. Very wild. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now we are back to what do I talk about now? Well, I've got some, let me close this because we've covered it now. And let me close this. I got some MUFON stuff to go through with you guys tonight too. I do have things to talk about, but if you've got something you want to talk about, by all means call in. We do have a call in going on right now, so let's answer this. And this is Anonymous. How you doing? You're on the air.
Hey, Brent, it's Wes. How are you, man?
Hey, good. Your potatoes sounding excellent now.
Does it sound better than the other night?
Yeah, it sounds way good. Now you're sounding epic.
Nice.
How's
nice.
things?
I sound like a professional.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I wanted to call in, man. What happened to Don tonight? Your co-host.
Oh yeah.
Sorry if I can burn up time.
No, it's fine. He had to work tonight, so it's just the real world happening.
Well, can I share a story with you?
Oh, I'd love it. Please.
So I got invited to do this live show down in Houston. Tony Merkel kind of wrangled me into it. Where I'd never heard of doing live podcasting, but I was like, okay, well, let's do it. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for a live podcast.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, really, what do you do for? Like, do people really want to see me behind a mic, sitting behind a desk like Johnny Carson? And so I talked to Bob Gimlin. Anyone in the chat that's down there that wants to come check it out, come check us out. Actually, I think it's sold out, so never mind. But anyway, I'll be down there on May 11th. You guys are welcome to come hang out. We'll get a drink for any of your audience that's down there. But what I thought I'd tell you is kind of part of my presentation I'm going to do,
uh-huh.
and just tell me what you think. And it's about how I met Bob Gimlin. Do you have like 10 minutes I can go over it?
Oh,
if not,
please.
It's cool. You can hang up on me too. You know my feelings.
You got all the time you want, brother. The floor is yours.
So, all right. So I'll cut out the first part of my presentation I'm going to do, but I want to tell this story because not too many people know this story. So when I started Sasquatch Chronicles, I couldn't get anyone to come on the show. I think it's pretty evident at this point. Like, I really struggled to get anyone to come on the show. And I would beg and plead with people to come on the show. No one would come on the show. And so long story short, the show's starting to take off. You know, I was starting to play YouTube clips of other people's encounters. And, you know, because I couldn't get anyone to come on, so I'd go find YouTube clips of eyewitnesses, and then we'd play it, and then we'd talk about it. And so anyway, and I ran out of those, so I'd cut out parts of Monster Quest and people talking about their encounters, and I would play that, and then we'd talk about it. And basically, it was a struggle really to get anyone on. But the show started, finally someone called in, and the show started to semi take off. Not great encounters, but, you know, at that point, you know, when you're not a great show, you'll take anyone. And I was willing to take anyone at that point. I mean, if you saw a black flash go across the road, bam, you're on the show. I want to hear about it. And so anyway, we struggled with it, had a hard time getting people to come on. And we were starting to find success, and people were starting to come on the show. But it was still a struggle every week. I mean, not much has changed, by the way. But anyway, it's still a struggle every week to get someone to come on the show and tell their encounter. So we get invited to Beachfoot. And for the audience listening, Beachfoot is basically it's a fancy camp. It's fancy camping with people who are interested in Bigfoot. That's all Beachfoot is. A lot of drinking, a lot of fun, good times, but that's basically it. The only reason why we went, my brother and myself went down to Beachfoot, is because Bob Gimlin was going to be there. Now, I'd never met Bob Gimlin.
Okay.
You know, I'd seen him on TV. I didn't really grow up with the Patterson Gimlin film. That was way before I was born.
Sure.
And so I wasn't a Patterson Gimlin film junkie. So we go down there to meet Bob Gimlin, and I wanted to have him on the show because, you know, as well as I do, Brent, you run a Bigfoot show. Having Bob Gimlin on is like having Elvis show up to your show. I mean, you're going to roll out the red carpet. If he wants to talk about tying his shoes for an hour, you're going to have him on. He's going to talk about tying his shoes for an hour.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I really want. Yeah, I really wanted to meet him. And so we go to this Beachfoot, and there's this area in Beachfoot where everyone drinks. I don't know how else to put it. It's kind of an open area. Everyone goes in there to drink. You can have a good time. There's a fire. It's good times had by all. And so we're sitting there, Woody and I are sitting in this little area, and we're having drinks. We're talking to the guys from the Olympic Project. I met Peter Byrne, for the audience. Your audience may not know who that is, but he stole the Yeti hand. He's an old man now, but he stole the Yeti hand back in like the 50s or whatever. And Ron Moorhead, of course, which you should have Ron on your show. Ron's golden.
That would be great.
And Ron's a great guy. You should have Bob on too, man.
I'd love to.
So we're sitting in there in this little area. We're drinking it up. And I look across because it's all open. There's no windows. So I look across, and basically I see this guy with the cowboy hat get out. And I was like, oh, there he is. It's Bob Gimlin. And Woody's nudging me. You know, my older brother is nudging me. That's Bob Gimlin. I'm like, quit nudging me. And he's like, that's Bob Gimlin. I know him. I know who it is. And so I'm telling Woody, you know, put your beer down, you know, try and look respectable. We're going to go up and we're going to really sweet talk this guy into coming on the show. We're going to meet him. It's going to be great. And we're going to, you know, tell Bob that joke, you know, and tell him that one joke, you know, when we get over there. And so we're preparing. And as I'm looking, as soon as Bob gets out of the truck, literally he's rushed by like 40 people. Oh, it was like, you know, the Red Sea closed down on him. And I remember sitting there, I was like, oh man, you know, and I was frustrated. I was irritated because I really wanted to meet him. And I was like, well, and Woody's like, well, let's just go stand in line. I'm like, no, I'm not going to bother the man. Look at him. He can't even walk from his truck to here because so many people are around him. I'm not going to bother this man. So we just blew it off, and I was kind of disappointed. And later that night, we found out Bob Gimlin had gone to sleep. And Are you still with me? Am I boring the audience?
No, you're great.
If I mean, it's cool.
Oh, it's awesome.
Okay. So anyway, we found out Bob Gimlin's going off to bed, and he'd gone off. Oh,
it's for you.
Sorry, rookie move on my part.
That's all right.
So we get he's gone to bed, and so anyway, we all go back to the drinking area, because if you ever go to a Bigfoot conference or any sort of Bigfoot get together, trust me, there's a drinking area, and so we're having a good time in there. And I tell the guys, I said, you know what, guys, I'm going to go use the bathroom. I'll be back. And I was kind of telling Woody, the next day was going to be Sunday, which everyone packs up and leaves at like 11 o'clock in the afternoon. And so basically our chances of really meeting Bob or even inviting him on the show were pretty much gone at this point.
Sure.
So I go off to the bathroom, and the bathroom is basically a fancy porta potty. You got to keep in mind this is middle of Oregon, middle of nowhere, on the near the ocean. And so I go in, I use the bathroom, I come out, and someone's there. And again, this is where the show was just starting to take off. Mm-hmm. You know, you probably have more people in your chat room than I had listeners at that time, but it was just starting to take off. So I come out of the bathroom, and there's a guy there, and he's like, hey, I love the show. And I'm talking to him. And I look over in that little pavilion, and there's this little guy with the cowboy hat on. It's freaking Bob Gimlin talking to Woody and this guy named Shane Corson. Now, Shane is he's basically part of the Olympic Project. And Bob had a glass of water in his hand, and he looked like he was doing a cheers to the guy. You know when you hold your drink up and you're like, cheers to the guy?
Sure.
That's what he looked like. So I'm like, out of the way, and I'm knocking the fans over, and I'm like running across the parking lot trying to get over there. Uh-huh. And so I finally get over there to Bob, and I said to him, as I'm walking up, the guy starts saying, oh, Bob just recovered from some sort of horse accident or something to that effect. Oh. And I was like, hey, Bob, it's great to meet you. You know, I'm basically fanboy on him. I'm shaking his hand, and I'm sure he thought I was going to hump his leg at the time, which I was just short of. And I start slapping him on the back. Hey, SOB, how are you? Tough SOB. And keep in mind, we'd been drinking. Sure. So I want to add that portion to the story. Sure. And I'm slapping him on the back. And every time I not really slapping him on the back, but slapping him on the shoulder. And every time I slap him on the shoulder, I notice where he was doing the cheers thing, that glass was getting lower and lower and lower and lower. Oh, and pretty much Bob, the left side of his shoulder was kind of hanging down. And I was like, I was oblivious to it at the time, completely oblivious to it. And I was like, well, you take care of yourself, you tough SOB. You take care. And he walks off. And I look over, and Woody and Shane, their jaws are almost on the ground. Woody's almost pale. He looks sick. I'm like, what's wrong with you guys? Uh-huh. Well, they proceed to tell me that Bob Gimlin basically had been kicked in the chest by one of his horses, or a horse fell on him. Oh, he told us the whole story. I need to ask Bob again, but he told us the whole story. He broke his back is what happened. And he crawled from the pasture to his home covered in blood. Oh, God. And basically what happened was his wife found him, and Bob thought he was going to die. And so Bob was like, I'm not going to go to the hospital and die. I'd rather die in my home. Uh-huh. So his wife propped him up in a chair, put some towels underneath his chin, and was feeding him soup for 3 days. Well, Bob figured out, well, I'm not going to die, so I might as well just go to the hospital. Come to find out, he broke his back. The reason why he was holding up the glass of water is that was a year of rehabilitation. A year ago, he couldn't do that. And so he's holding up this glass of water, and I'm like, hey, son of a bitch, how are you? And I'm slapping him on the shoulder. And the whole time he's like, I'm injuring the old man. And I was like, oh, no. And I felt so terrible. And I was like, oh, man, we're never having Bob Gimlin on the show. I just beat the crap out of him. And so I tried to find him, couldn't find him. And the next day I found him, and I apologized up and down to Bob. And I just said, Bob, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, what do you say at that point, really? I saw the headline, Sasquatch Chronicles kills Bob Gimlin, on Reddit or whatever. Right. And so I was like really apologetic to Bob, and I was like, I'm really sorry. And I apologize. And Bob was very gracious. Bob was like, hey, don't worry about it. Didn't hurt one bit, which was BS. He told me later it was BS, but He was very gracious about it, very nice about it.
Oh, cool.
And there's no way I'm going to ask this guy to come on the show now. Right.
Right.
And so Sasquatch Chronicles goes on, and there's a lot of things that went on behind the scenes, a lot of fighting behind the scenes, egos, and I never really addressed it, and I won't bore your audience with it, but no one really wants to know how sausage is made. You just want to put mustard on it and eat it. You don't really want to know what goes into it. So I never really bothered to go into half the stuff that went on behind the scenes. But anyway, a lot of infighting, co-host leaves, and, you know, I get branded a liar and on and on. I mean, every name in the book you can think of. And I was getting death threats, and I was getting, I'm not trying to do boohoo me, but there's a lot of bad things that happened. And I got to the point where I was like, I'm done. I've had enough of this. I am absolutely done with this. And I remember sitting there one day, and I was sitting in my chair, and Woody had stopped by, and Woody comes in and goes, "What's going on?" And I go, "I'm done with Sasquatch Chronicles. I've had enough. I've had enough of everyone's BS. I've had enough of the death threats. I've had enough of the all day long phone calls, middle of the night phone calls. You know, I'm done. This is it. I'm done. I've had enough." Ring, 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 ring. I look down, Yakima, Washington. Now, I didn't know anyone from Yakima, Washington, really. Okay. And I'd been getting phone calls from, you name it, I've been getting phone calls. Yeah. I go to answer the phone, and this voice on the other end goes, "Well, hi, I was trying to reach Wes." Oh, no. I was like, "This is Wes." "Well, hi, Wes. This is Bob Gimlin. And we met a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember that or not." Of course I remember. It's Bob Gimlin. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I'm sitting there. I'm like, this really isn't Bob Gimlin. So I was kind of a dick to him for about the first 10 minutes because I really thought it was a joke. Right. And so Bob goes in and starts telling me about how, you know, the ins and outs of the Patterson-Gimlin film. Stuff you don't hear about. You know, everyone sees a famous frame of Patty turning around, but you don't really hear the ins and outs of what actually went on at that time. And I was sitting there just amazed by it. Yeah. I mean, just completely amazed by it. And Bob, you know, he went in talking about Roger Patterson and the different thing. And they did Bob pretty hard. They did Bob pretty bad on a lot of things. Yeah. And the fact that he's not a bitter old man is amazing to me. Yeah. But so that he starts telling me a little thing, and he starts talking about when Roger had cancer and how he had forgiven Roger, and they had made peace with each other over, you know, what had happened and some of the shady stuff Roger was trying to pull. And Bob said to me, he said, "You know, Wes, you know, forgiveness is a powerful tool. You want to know why?" And I said, "Why is that?" And I wasn't ready to forgive anyone at that point. Sure. And he goes, "You know why it's such a powerful tool is because it's meant for you. It's not meant for the other person." Wow. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "When you forgive someone, they no longer take up rent in your head. They no longer live in your world. You've let it go." Wow. And he goes, "Until you're willing to do that, you'll never find peace." And he goes, "So many years with Roger, I was a bitter man and I was an angry man." And he said, "Forgiveness is such a powerful tool because it has nothing to do with the person you're forgiving. It has something to do with yourself." And that always stuck with me. Yeah. And so at the end of the call, Bob goes, "Oh, by the way, Wes, if you'd like to have me come on your show, I would love to come on as a guest to kind of show my support for all this nonsense that's going on." And that meant the world to me. Yeah. That meant more to me than anything else anyone's ever done for me. And obviously I'm like trying to hook up the mics, and I'm like, "Hang on, Bob, I'm almost got a setup, guy. We're good to go." And Bob's like, "Well, you know, I gotta bale some hay." Oh. I'm like, "Bob, you're an 80-year-old man. What are you talking about baling hay?" He's like, "Well, I gotta finish baling hay, and then I gotta feed the horses. I'll come in and have supper. How about if we do it around 6? Does that work for you?" And I remember it just meant the world to me. Here's a guy, he doesn't know me, he doesn't have to call me, he doesn't even have to be nice to me. And for him to do that really meant the world to me. And so I hang up with him, and I'm sitting there, and Woody goes, "Who was that?" I go, "Bob Gimlin." He goes, he's coming on the show, isn't he? I go, yeah. He goes, you're going to keep doing the show, aren't you? And I said, I'm going to do one more. Oh, and that was episode 90. Wow. And here we are, episode 500 something. So, without Bob, I think I would have quit. I would have been done. But I thought I'd share it with you, man. I know you don't have a co-host tonight. Thought I'd jump in as a wingman, share a good story with you and your audience.
Now, I got to tell you, I actually got chills as you were closing that story. That's really, really powerful. I think it's a really, really cool story. And I got to tell you, I'm really thrilled that you didn't give it up because, as I've told you before, I've been a big fan of your show for a long time. And in fact, I learned so much just listening to your guests tell what they've experienced. And it's still one of my key go-tos just for listening to hear what's going on in the communities. But, when I started my show, in my head, I really molded it around what you were doing. In my mind, it was going to be a show where people would call in and participate, and it would be this great discussion. And what I thought it was just a matter of turning on the lights and then boom, people would be there. But I found out really quickly. I was like, I wish I knew Wes Germer so I could figure out how to do this because nobody's calling. I didn't know how to get people engaged like that. And I thought, man, I must be doing it really wrong or something. But it's really neat to hear you share that story because that was my experience too. It was like, I turn it on and there'd be, 5 or 10 people in the chat room and I'd be talking. And this was when it was just audio only on tfrlive.com. And after a while, people started engaging and becoming a part of this new community. And it's really gotten incredibly exciting. But yeah, I just thought as soon as I put the word, put the show light on, boom, people would just be amping to call in. But that's really wasn't the case. I was a little disappointed for a long time in that.
Yeah, you're right. It is. And I think because when people hear the show, it sounds like I just turn the mic on and, I have a great guest. And it seems like there's very little effort that goes into the show, which always shocks me when people say that because I'm like, there's actually a lot of effort that goes into the show. Yeah. But I understand their perspective. When they listen to it, it sounds like you just turn on the mic, someone great shows up, bam. Thanks for being here, everyone. Here's the closing music. Peace out. But there's actually a ton of work that goes into it. And I was telling Merkel, Tony Merkel, he's got some show. I don't remember what the name of it is. But anyway, I was telling Tony, when you, it's the Confessionals. When you get into this, I said, success has a funny way of masking itself as nothing more than hard work. Yeah. And you always hear. The one thing I can't stand is watching guys complain and moan, and why can't I do this, or why isn't my show great, or why? It's a bunch of hard work. You got to get down. It doesn't just happen. You got to make it happen. And I commend you, man, for doing a show 7 days a week. I'd hang myself in the middle of the room if I was doing a show 7 days a week, a live show like you do. My hat's off to you. Merkel and I were just talking about that, and I was like, I don't know how he does it 7 days a week. I couldn't do it 7 days a week. And to create a good show, anyone can do a show, but to create a good show, something to listen to. Mm-hmm. And I always tell the guys, despite what you read online about me being this money grubbing, evil genius or whatever, people give me way too much credit. I'm really am a dumb guy. If your focus is at creating a great show, eventually sponsors will come. Eventually money will show up. But if you start off with a mindset of I want to make a buck, you'll never get anywhere. Right. You got to put your heart and soul into something to create something special. And if your focus is money or your focus is I want to get popular, and by the way, being popular in the Bigfoot world isn't what it's isn't what it's made up to be. Trust me. Yeah. But if you focus on putting your heart in something, create something cool, all I ever really wanted to do was create a cool show me and my friends could sit and listen to. Because there was nothing else out there like it. Yeah. No one ever talked to an eyewitness. It was always an author. It was always a expert. No one ever talked to an eyewitness. And I know that because even when I was stealing eyewitness accounts and playing on my show, off YouTube, there was like 8 when I started. Now you go on there, there's like thousands of them.
Right. Right.
But it's a lot of heart and soul, man, and a lot of hard work. And I think you do a great job. I think the Paranormal Portal is going to be, you're going to skyrocket, man. You already are, but you're going to skyrocket more. And I think you do a great job, man. That's why I wanted to call in, share the Bob Gimlin. I'm sorry for taking up so much time on the show and taking up other callers.
It's always an honor to hear from you, and your praise means the world to me, because you've been an icon to me, a formative icon and somebody that I've tried to emulate. So your praise means the world, and I appreciate it. And you're right. If you don't mind, if I can continue the dialogue a little bit here, but as soon as you were talking about nobody talks to the witnesses, and suddenly I was brought back to finding Bigfoot. And now, really the only thing they found was sponsors, but the one thing they did right was they did those town hall meetings. Those were my favorite parts of that show, when they would get all those people in the room and have them tell their experiences and stuff. It was like, I thought that was the best part of the whole show. And it's, now that I think about it, it's your whole show is talking to witnesses. And that's maybe why I love it, is because you never learn more than you will through the people that experienced it.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. And I've been to LA a couple. I mean, I could be on TV right now if I wanted to, because they'll come to you. I'm sure they'll come to you too, Brent. Mm-hmm. And I'll warn you, people on TV are some of the biggest sharks you'll ever meet in your life. Oh. But they always want to rehash the same thing. Yeah. They want, let's have you bang on some trees, have some of your buddies go out there and make calls. Mm-hmm. And to me, when I watched like Finding Bigfoot, that was all filler content. Yeah. That was like the stuff because they couldn't fill 22 minutes. The best part of the show is when the eyewitnesses were recounting their encounters. Yeah. The rest of it was just, and I don't have anything against those guys. Right. I think they're good guys, but the rest of the show was garbage. Yeah. It was filler. And I wish I would have stayed with the eyewitnesses. And like you said, I've learned so much from eyewitnesses. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's fun. That's a fun part of doing this for me. Yeah. It really, that's what makes the show, is talking to an eyewitness. The rest of it is just nonsense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I agree completely. And it's funny because it seems like everybody notices something different. So it's like every story brings something new to the table that I'd never heard before. And it's really neat how it's just a puzzle that continues to assemble itself.
Yeah, and you learn a lot of things. Like I know a lot of these researchers, they say, well, no one's ever seen a Bigfoot twist a tree. You've heard about the tree
sure.
twist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not true. I can think of 3 or 4 witnesses I've had on that have actually seen them physically do it.
Wow.
And so that's why I don't understand why a lot of these researchers don't focus more on eyewitnesses. What did you see? What did you hear? Let's go over it and figure this thing out. And I think they'd be so much farther along if they did that. All a researcher is a guy who had an encounter 30 years ago and thinks he knows everything today. Yeah. That's basically what a Bigfoot researcher is.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry, but
I think.
Go ahead, brother.
I think that a lot of the researchers though are kind of on the glory parade, like they just want to be the one. They want to be the one to bring that holy grail to the table. And whether some people say they need a body, some people just need really pristine video or something, but. It's just, it's such a cutthroat deal in the community. And that's really unfortunate because with all of that infighting and all of that, casting aspersions back and forth, it really degrades the experience, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, it's like being the skinniest kid at fat camp. I mean, really, what are you proving? You know what I mean? Like, and that's really what a Bigfoot researcher is, someone who... It's like the skinniest kid at fat camp. I mean, really, what is it you're proving? Yeah. And I always laugh when a lot of them say, well, science will never take it seriously. Science doesn't take you seriously now. and I'm not a scientist, and I don't take you seriously. No one takes you seriously. Right. Yeah, but there's this weird ego. And do you have that in the paranormal world? The Bigfoot world
sometimes
is monsters.
But yeah, I've never heard
the real monsters are the Bigfoot researchers.
Yeah, I don't think there's any field of the paranormal that's more combative than the Bigfoot field. I mean, there's some infighting in the ghost and UFO camps, but not nearly like you see in the Bigfoot world. I mean, that's just, it's almost like the WWE. It's like, wow, they really don't like each other.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's totally true.
Yeah.
But I don't want to burn up your show, man. I feel bad taking up so much time.
Hey, I wanted you on the show. If I got to get you on this way, I'll take it.
No, I'll come on as a guest. I'll definitely come on as a guest.
Oh,
If Lady Death is nice to me in the chat room, I'll come on as a guest.
Oh,
So
she's an amazing lady.
Yeah, I'm just teasing you.
Well, thank you, brother.
But yeah, brother,
I can't tell you.
I appreciate you having me on.
Anytime, man. I'm serious. Anytime you want to call in, I love hearing from you, and you always bring something fun to the table. And I like your comparisons. Kill me, the skinniest kid at fat camp. That's awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks so much for calling in and being a part of the show. And you take care of yourself, brother.
All right, you take care, Brent.
All right, good night. Mr. Wes Germer, ladies and gentlemen of Sasquatch Chronicles. Just always a pleasure. That's cool. The few times he's been on, he's called in, and he always brings a real gem with him. It's really cool. Yeah, just really great dialogue. So I was going to go into the MUFON stuff, wasn't I? But any of you guys want to call in, the lines are now open. Please call in. It's 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. Hey, Jess, good to see you. Thanks for stopping in. Oh, Mr. Merkel. Tony Merkel's in the chat, and he says, "Hey, everyone, if you guys have seen Wes Germer, please let me know. He escaped the cage. I keep him locked up in my basement. I was told he was last seen here." Yeah, I tried to hold him for you, Tony, but he took off. I couldn't keep him. But maybe next time. What is it with basements? All right, so let's see what's going on in MUFON world here. Nothing much. No, I'm just kidding. There's stuff going on here. I had something pulled up here, and this is there's some current event stuff on the MUFON site that I think is pretty interesting. So the first one I wanted to cover was German witness photographs hovering disc UFO. Now, the time I saw a UFO, it was a disc. It was like a flying saucer. It was really up close and personal, and I've shared that many times. I don't need to keep repeating myself, but, it's all these different shapes and sizes are so bizarre, and I guess we always equate that to different kinds of aliens. They all have, like, their different ones, I don't know why they have such varied shapes, but I guess if these things are indeed traveling through space, they probably don't need to worry about aerodynamics. They can be whatever the hell shape they can throw together. They just got some Lego UFO bricks and they throw one together and they pop across the stars. So this one says, a German witness of Kronberg in Taunus reported watching and photographing a hovering disc-shaped object. According to testimony in case 92387 from the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, witness reporting database, the witness was looking out a window at 8:50 p.m. on May 29th, 2018. Saw some kind of disc oval-shaped object on the left side, northwest of the building. The witness stated, "I was excited and decided to record the event, and when I came back with my mobile phone, I spotted the object in some distance and took some pictures, and on the pictures, it looks like it could have been a bird or some kind, but it was hovering, a hovering object, and it was stationary in about 1 kilometer of distance. And I recorded the event and caught the object coming out of the thunderstorm clouds and fell about 300 meters in about half a second, then hovering and remaining stationary again. I recorded 1 minute and 30 seconds of video, and the whole sighting was approximately 3 minutes. And there is a picture. So let me drag that over so you guys can see this. All right. Put it up on screen, and there it is. It seems like a pretty unremarkable image, like it could just be dust on the lens kind of thing. But if the person said they observed something for a while, I don't see any reason to doubt that. But the picture in itself is not that incredible. However, this one is. And this comes out of Utah, and it says, Utah witness says UFO followed her home. A Utah witness in Enterprise recorded encountering and photographing an object with 2 green lights that followed her home. According to testimony in case 91780 from the MUFON site, witness was driving home from St. George to Enterprise, heading northwest on Highway 18 at approximately 2:45 a.m. on May 4th, 2018. And at approximately mile marker 38, saw 2 green lights to the southwest of me. The witness stated, as I drove through the canyon, the lights came closer towards me and was descending from the dark sky. My initial thought was, what a weird place to see a drone. But as I thought through it, sorry, that's a lot of TH words in the middle in a row there. I realized nobody would be flying a drone in this area at this time of morning. Then the lights got closer, and I realized this was a much bigger object than I thought. It's hovering next to me as I drove, and I reached for my phone to take a picture, and the object hovered about above me and then hovered just ahead of me, hugged up. It says hugged up to the mountainside. I'm not sure what hugging up to the mountainside is, but apparently that's just moving up a mountain. I wondered if it was going to land because it was so low, and then it hovered up and over the mountain, keeping close to the terrain or to the treetops, and then out of sight at a northern direction. Well, I imagine if it was hovering so close to the treetops, perhaps it was trying to elude detection, maybe from radar, as a possibility. I don't know. As it came out of the canyon, I scanned the dark sky, looking for the green lights again, but it didn't see anything but stars. As I continued the drive home, I was questioning what I saw and my own sanity, and then as I turned right up my street, there were 2 green lights again about 150 yards in front of me and approximately 20 feet above the ground coming right at me. Oh, man. So I turned my lights off and grabbed my phone, and as I snapped 2 pictures, the object just hovered in place for about 15 seconds, and that's when I noticed the green lights spinning into and out of sight and the first time. I don't know. The first time I saw an orangish red light blinking below the green lights, and then it floated away in the southwestern direction. When the witness got home, the green and red lights were still seen in the distance. I was so creeped out and was afraid of abduction because of the object following and watching me that I sat in my car with the lights and engine off for 5 minutes before running into my house and locking all the doors and shutting all the blinds. I could not hear anything and could not make out a formation with my naked vision, but when I looked at the pictures that I had taken, I then saw the formation of the object and the windows in the object and some sort of blue glow in the top of the formation, and none of those visible to the naked eye in the dark. I continue to now hear a hovering sound over my house come and go as I type this 4 times in the last hour, but when I look outside, there's nothing to be seen, and then the sound just disappears. I'm not 100% sure this is related, but we do not have known flying objects such as helicopters flying around Enterprise, and the sound is not that of an airplane. So, very interesting. There's the blue section they're talking about, and it really does look like a disc type of craft. That's pretty intense. Wow, great sighting. That is crazy. Hold on, I want to look and make sure I'm not missing something. I do have another call, so let's get to this call. And this is area code 406. You're on the air.
Howdy, guys. It's Duke.
Hey, Duke. How you doing, brother?
Doing pretty good. Enjoying your show tonight. It was fun hearing Wes call in. He needs to do a show with you, definitely. And it was fun hearing him talk about some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You know, I had a Bob Gimlin sighting, too.
Did you really?
I want to be my Bob Gimlin sighting because it was so exactly the opposite of Wes's. It couldn't be any more different.
So you didn't beat up Bob Gimlin then?
No, I didn't beat up Bob Gimlin. This is really hilarious because I actually grew up during the Bob Gimlin era. You know, I saw the Patterson Gimlin film when it came out and was touring around the theaters and that kind of thing. And, you know, I had my own sighting just, 5 years later. So I'd been like a fan forever, figured I'd never meet the guy. I, lived in Minnesota, so not like big time Bigfoot convention area or anything, not much chance of meeting him there.
Right.
And finally got out here and got involved with the Bigfoot community out here. And I was actually involved with setting up the first Big Sky Bigfoot conference here in Montana, which I ended up being the keynote speaker at, basically. But one of the other people that was on the bill was Russell Acord, who is the manager of Bob Gimlin. So I got to meet Russell. Well, then over the course of time, then he became the manager of Bob. At the time, he wasn't.
Okay.
So then several Big Sky Bigfoot conferences later, it was going on again, and Bob was going to be there. And I was like, okay, cool. He's only 40 miles away. I'm going to cruise down to the conference, and for sure I'll at least meet Bob, and I'll see whoever else is there, and this will be fun. So I show up, and I had already gotten a International Bigfoot Conference T-shirt from that year. Even though I couldn't make it, one of my friends was there and grabbed me one. Uh-huh. So I was wearing that, and I'm standing out in the parking lot. I'm talking to one of the presenters who had been at the International Bigfoot Conference who was wearing the identical shirt. And we're both hobnobbing away, and here comes Russell Acord walking across the parking lot with Bob Gimlin right next to him. And I'm like, wow, there's Bob Gimlin right there. Well, Russell comes walking up and says, he's talking to Mark, who was next to me. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Because Mark had just been in, his event like a couple months earlier, a month earlier. And Bob doesn't really recognize me, but I'm wearing the same shirt, right? So he sticks his arm out and he goes, hey, partner, how you doing? And shakes my hand. I'm just like, okay, I pictured standing in line for an hour to like maybe ask him a sentence and get an autograph or something, not to be standing out in front of the building having a cigarette and have him walk up and say, hey, how you doing?
Oh, that's cool. Very, very
cool. Of course, I didn't know what to say, and I was extremely shocked, and I was like, okay, I'm living in some weird alternate universe here where impossibly weird things can happen because, I never figured I'd even meet the guy, much less have him walking across the parking lot, stick out his arm and shake my hand and say, how you doing?
Right. Wow. That's really cool. That's excellent.
Well, subsequent to that, I've got to talk to the guy several times in other places at the IBC this year and everything. And just to let everybody know, he is the person he presents himself as. He is that, genuine, actual cowboy that filmed Bigfoot guy. That's really Bob Gimlin.
Wow, that's so cool. And he comes across that way, like he would be, like he's a very down to earth person. Every time I've seen him interviewed and talking on whatever platform I've been able to see him on, he just comes across as a real down to earth, unassuming person, and it clearly hasn't gone to his head, the whole celebrity of it all.
No. No, well, he took hell for 30 years, too, so this is kind of different for him. He's, kind of like lucky that he lived long enough to get to the point where everybody went, hey, Bob Gimlin's still around. Nobody's debunked that video. This is cool. Let's talk to Bob. For 30 years, he was just doing nothing but catching hell for it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that have done a lot of great work, at least reinforcing the fact that this is something really anomalous, because so many people have tried and claim to be successfully debunking it. But I think, and the one that jumps to mind, of course, is Thinker Thunker with his ratios and stuff. I think he did a great job establishing why that wasn't somebody in a suit, as well as Bill Munns. I think he did great as well. Yeah. Which is really cool.
Bill Munns did excellent work, but you had actual scientists involved in that too. I mean, Jeff Meldrum and some of those other guys got involved in the kinesiology, the breakdown of the foot, and blah, 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 and they all gave it the thumbs up too, going, wow, this looks real to us, guys. I mean, if this is a forgery, it's the greatest ever. And keep in mind, at the time that film came out, they actually passed it along to Disney to look at and went, hey, can you make something that looks like this? And they were like the top special effects platform on Earth at the time.
Sure.
And they said, yeah, give us about $1 million to $2 million and we can make something that looks kind of like it. It won't be exactly the same.
Oh, yeah. And obviously Roger and Bob didn't have that kind of cash.
No, they're rodeo cowboys. Roger is just fascinated with Bigfoot and wants to run around and get evidence on it. kind of hooks Bob into being his ride because he didn't have a working vehicle, and that's how they ended up down in Bluff Creek. And Bob was, right there with him when he was lucky enough to get to film.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's still, I just posted a video just the other day of the top 5 videos allegedly showing Bigfoot. And, of course, the Patty Gimlin is right in there and will always be in there. There's a few other ones like, why do I always forget this guy's name? The Freeman films that he took.
Yeah, Freeman film, that's a really good one, too.
Yeah. And there's a couple other ones in there that are newer, but I thought that they were at least really compelling. Everybody wants to jump to the whole suit idea, but there's this one that basically shows from the torso up as it's walking, and it's in really clear. It's a real quick clip, but it shows the back profile of this alleged Bigfoot walking away into the woods, and it's the way that it moves its shoulders as it's going. I mean, that's not like a shoulder pad kind of deal, because it moves with it as it's twisting its back. Those shoulders are moving in perfect concert with that. And if it was shoulder pads and a suit, that would be primarily rigid because the person's body would move underneath it, but you'd never get that kind of natural motion in the pads themselves. So I think that that's an actually legitimate one too, but that's my own review of it. Of course, I don't have any ground to stand on with that.
Yeah, there's actually a surprising amount of pictures and video that comes out practically on a daily basis that doesn't get much attention because the quality is not super high. Right. So people just figure it's like, not worth looking at. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of that is good evidence too, and it just gets ignored.
Sure.
Yeah. So there is that, and there are good pieces of footage out there that people really aren't paying attention to. And the Freeman footage and the Patterson footage get put up as the two biggies that everybody knows about that get the most play time.
Yeah.
But there's other stuff out there. You just have to be more involved in the community and like looking for it.
Yeah, exactly.
To see it. Sometimes you get pieces of video, like there was a piece in Siberia that somebody had posted that was like almost taken down off the internet immediately. I think it's back up again now. But it was just some hikers, and all of a sudden you hear this girl scream, and the guy with the camera turns, and you see this huge, Yeti-looking thing run across the trail behind him from one tree to another and then go back down into the woods. And it was really clear video. I think Thinker Thunker's done a breakdown on it. But there again is a good example, like nobody knows about it.
Right. And I think that those are the more compelling things too, because if it's a hoax, those people that are hoaxing it are going to work their tails off to get it everywhere. They want the recognition of creating a believable hoax. And so if they sit with just a few views on them and nobody's paying attention to them, to me, that does lend to their credibility.
Yeah, if you're going to yank everybody's chain, there's going to be two motives for it. One is that you're going to try and make money on it as a hoaxer, retire. And then there's the other ones where it's like they're just trying to, they put up a cardboard, a plywood cutout of Bigfoot painted black, on their property line to see if people shoot at it or take pictures or, claim they saw a Bigfoot there or something like that just because they think it's funny. But in between this, there's a line. How much money are you going to spend hoaxing people and never make anything back on it?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
In other words, are you going to go to, are you going to spend thousands of dollars fabricating some expensive monkey suit and find some 7-foot tall guy and wear it so that you can get, 5 seconds of blurry footage that you're going to put on the internet just to hoax people and you're never going to make money on it?
Yeah, boy, what a pursuit.
That does not make sense. That is completely illogical, and people that use that as an excuse for all this being fake are just fooling themselves and are afraid that their little house of glass is going to shatter and their paradigm's going to be gone.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. But unfortunately, there is still plenty of people interested in trying to push those hoaxy things. But, the thing that occurred to me is, and I of course, I've read comments of many videos, and the one that I'm referring to that's basically a torso up of the Bigfoot walking away. The biggest thing, it's very pristine. It's very in focus. I wouldn't say it's high def or anything, but it's really clear. And you can even see the muscle, structure underneath the the pelt, for lack of a better term. And people, even though it's so clear and so believable, it's just like people run to that fake. It's fake. That's obviously fake. It's either CG or if it's a suit or whatever. And it's like the clearer a video is, the more people are just running to fake. Like they just need to defend their paradigm. That's severely,
Yeah, exactly. I get to see that all the time too, and it's hilarious, the rationalizations from those skeptards that come in that way, where it's like, okay, it's fuzzy, you can't see it, it's indistinct, it's a blob squatch, it's probably a stump.
Yeah.
Okay, it's really clear, it's a guy in a suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
so what level of data is good for you guys? What works for you? It was like halfway out of focus.
Yeah.
Is that good evidence then?
Right.
Because if it's in focus, it's fake, and if it's out of focus, it's not a Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. If it I think it just boils down to those people that don't want to believe are just not going to believe. And even if you rolled a body on a slab, they'd be, still not believing it.
Yeah.
They just need for that paradigm to stay intact. But yeah, it's funny. I never really considered, not that I didn't want to have Bob Gimlin on the show, but I just didn't think, I didn't think that I had a shot at having him on the show. But I think, now I've got two people that have met him, and he sounds like just an amazing guy. I'm gonna try to reach out to him and see if he'll be on the show. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have him on my show at some point too, but just haven't had the chance to have him on yet.
Sure. Well.
Yeah,
but we got Jerry coming up this Friday.
He's busy guy.
Oh, I imagine. I mean, even as Wes was saying, he's still out baling his hay and stuff. And I don't know how long ago that was, but I imagine if he's able to, he's still doing the same thing.
He is. He's still running his horse ranch thing that he's got going there. So, yeah, he's got all that keeping him busy, plus going around to conventions and blah, 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 blah. So he's a busy guy.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's really cool. And I'm glad he's finally getting the recognition he deserves. I can't imagine what it would be like to be at the center of so much controversy just because you brought forward something absolutely amazing that, you'd be so under attack and having people just trying to discredit you. And that's really cool that he's still a nice guy and down to earth and a gentle soul, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wes can definitely attest to his personality and moral virtue more than I can, because Wes is, tight with Bob. He's talked to him zillions of times. But, same impression that I get and same impression that everybody else that's met him gets, that, he is that guy. He's that down-to-earth, really nice guy.
Right.
And, God bless him. Glad that he made it this long. Hope he lives another 10 years at least.
Yeah.
And, I'm glad that he made it this far. And, part of the reason why he's getting acceptance now is because the skeptics attack him so much. Because they tried so vigorously and so hard as the technology would get better. Let's take the Patterson-Gimlin film and debunk it finally. Yeah. Now we've got technology that can disprove it. Oh, crap, it came up as real again.
Yeah. Dang it.
And as the technology get better, it came up more and more as real. Yeah. Every time.
Well, that didn't work. Damn it.
Nope. Oh. That's not working. The better the tech gets, the more it proves that's real footage of a real creature.
Now, speaking of Bigfoot photos and videos, I think that there's probably a ton of them out there that people don't release for that very reason. That there's probably some amazing evidence out there, but people aren't willing to take them on the chin to put it out there. It's like, this concept that some people believe that researchers owe them proof, and when it doesn't make the cut, they just take it on the chin. But I really believe there's a lot of things that are probably out there, and I'm sure you've probably actually seen them, whereas I haven't. But I'm just speculating. But do you think that's the case, or is that the case that people have a lot of amazing evidence, but they're just not willing to go through that public
Absolutely.
scrutiny? Yeah.
Absolutely. Some of them are releasing it. They're just staying on the down low. So unless you actually know that they're there and go looking for them, you're not going to see it anyway.
Right.
I mean, you've got one listener to your show that I can think of as an example that gets pretty much regular pictures of them and posts them. Mm-hmm. And, doesn't want to be public, so just doesn't make a big deal about it and doesn't want to go on any shows.
Yeah. No, I understand. I think it's a pretty thankless thing to come forward with any kind of evidence that could stand up to scrutiny, because there's people that are just going to bust themselves over sideways trying to discredit it, or you, or whatever. It's almost like you're running for public office,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's one of the problems.
he
If you're a Bigfoot researcher, you have to stand up to the credibility test in every aspect of your
Right.
life. If you tell a fib somewhere, then that affects your credibility as a Bigfoot researcher.
I heard he got in
So you
trouble.
practically have to have this reputation of George Washington,
Yes.
I cannot tell a lie,
Yep.
to even get involved in it, and think that you're not going to get hammered at some point with people calling you a liar or a hoaxer or something.
Yeah. We'd like to believe him, but we heard he cheated on a 5th grade math test, so obviously he's shady.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. But that's
like
really
ordinary people never tell a fib.
right. Yeah. Like there's so many absolute pillars of communities out there. It's terrible. It's funny because I really don't see that in the other fields of paranormal research. Like Wes and I were discussing, it's like, no, it's really, I think for the most part, paranormal researchers, as far as ghosts and spirits and stuff, they don't really get into that whole infighting thing so much. I don't know why, but again, it just seems like the Bigfoot community's just got a whole different caliber of attention seekers, I guess.
Yeah, it does. And you're right about it. It seems like from what I've been able to glean about the other communities, it doesn't work that way there. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of fighting in the UFO community.
Yeah, no.
Other than how many alien races are there and whose side are they on, they don't seem to fight with each other about very much.
Right.
They're all sort of on the same, let's get the government to admit that it's real page. And, we got the Minister of Defense up there in Canada after he retired came out and said, yeah, it's all real. UFOs are real.
Hellyer,
real. And everybody went, no, let's not pay any attention to that.
Yeah, that's Paul Hellyer. Yeah.
But, yeah, exactly. On the other hand, I haven't had that much contact with the paranormal community to see how things go there. I'm just taking your word for it on that thing. And it is kind of peculiar that there's that sort of level of credibility that has to go along with it. Matt Squatch was telling me that he was at a convention in California that was a UFO convention.
Uh-huh.
And they wanted him to speak because he just thought it'd be interesting to have somebody talk about Bigfoot there. So he did a presentation. And he got, questions and stuff and talked to all the UFO people about Bigfoot. And he was just amazed that he didn't get hammered about anything.
Wow.
And that's just not normal in the Bigfoot community. Even if there's a presenter, somebody's going to disagree and have an argument with you and whatever. And they're part of this faction that thinks you're full of it or whatever,
Yeah.
So he was just like, wow, none of them took issue with anything. They just had more questions.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad he had a good experience with it. So he knows it's possible. It just hasn't been something he's experienced yet, unfortunately, other than that.
Yeah. I wish I could pinpoint what it is exactly in the Bigfoot community that makes it that way. I don't even like to think that there is a Bigfoot community, really, because there kind of isn't one. There's just factions, and they like to fight with each other. Hey, man, if I could pinpoint what the issue is there, I'd figure out the cure and bottle it, and I'd make $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that I really believe, and this is just me from the outside looking in, I'm not real deeply in bed with the Bigfoot community. Of course, I'm absolutely compelled and very interested in the subject matter, but I just think that there's just a lot of people in that community that are trying to put their name on the map. We're the people that know about Bigfoot. Those other people don't. We're the ones that are going to find it. The other people aren't because they're all wrong. And it's just it seems to be just a glory hounds. There's a lot of glory hounds.
Yeah, it seems like it. And it seems like that, that's part of the reason that it's cliquish, because each guy thinks they have the good information that's going to allow them to get the information that's going to prove Bigfoot's real, video, physical evidence, whatever. And then, they'll be on some big tour and they'll make millions of dollars, and I'm the guy that proved Bigfoot's real, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I do, the more I know about Bigfoot, the more I think that's impossible. No human being is ever going to be able to figure that out and do it all on their own in one lifetime.
Right.
So unless you got a team working with you, ain't happening. And these guys are all egomaniacs. Most of them don't want to have a team with them. They don't want them knowing their secrets, whatever they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you've got the secondary wall of the government doesn't want it coming out. So even if you manage to somehow shoot one and drag it out of the woods, they're going to take the corpse away from you,
Right.
and it's not going to come out.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories of that already happening. That people have claimed to have got one, and suddenly people show up with suits, and it kind of dies all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. Or the people that got one just disappeared and never seen again, sort of thing.
Yeah, or or they're replaced with rubber mannequins or whatever, whatever the case may be, like the Minnesota Iceman. I don't know. That wasn't that allegedly some government people showed up and took the body, and so they made a fake one.
I think. Well, the story, according to you, talking about the Minnesota Iceman.
Yeah.
He had the original on tour, and then he wanted to go across the Canadian border with it, so they made a mock-up that they took into Canada, I think, is what the story was on that one.
Oh, okay.
The one that they sold down to some exhibit in Texas is the mock-up one. It's not the real thing.
Okay.
That was just recently for sale on eBay or something.
Oh, the real one was, or the mock-up?
The mock-up one was.
Oh.
The real one, if it even exists, who knows where that is.
Right.
Yeah, he got actually some. I saw that story reported somewhere, and they said it was some Canadian official that helped him out, which is complete BS because I was living in Minnesota at the time, and the person they named was actually a member of the Minnesota legislature, the government there.
Oh.
And he was the one that pulled the strings to get him back across the border again with it and leave him alone, basically. Oh. So it wasn't Canada that had anything to do with it. It was somebody in Minnesota, actually, that helped him get back across the border again.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Wow. Very deep. Well,
sorry, I couldn't remember the exact name.
No, that's all right. You're allowed that once in a while. I most of the time can't remember names, so when I do pull out a name, I'm always impressed with myself, but you're always pegging names and dates and stuff, and it's absolutely mind-numbing.
Yeah, when it gets to be over 40 or 50 years ago, it's hard to remember exact names sometimes, but, sorry about that, folks. You can look it up. You can find it.
It's out there. Just keep looking. But
it's out there. Just look.
Now, there's one thing I want to touch base with. You're almost out of time for tonight, but photographs of Bigfoot. There was this one, was it Mark Ayers or something like that? And he had these really incredible photos, but those were all fake. Is that right? Or do you know who I'm talking about?
Are you talking about Mark Andrews? Yeah,
yes.
That's long ago been decided by the community that he had, some kind of an incredible suit made up, and he was taking pictures of, because he was claiming to be in different states taking pictures of different Bigfoots, but it was the same Bigfoot every time.
Oh, okay.
So either he was not in the different states and he was taking pictures of the same Bigfoot, or it was somebody in a suit, or, it's just kind of like, man, part of your story fell apart, so the rest of it's not believable.
Okay. All right. I'd never heard the whole story of it. I remember seeing the photos and being like, wow, if those are real, that is just incredible. But, cause,
yeah.
These towering beings.
No, I got into the community of starting paying very much attention to it anyway, at the point where he already had this stuff all over the place and everybody was going like, nah.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Don't know that it's fake, but, I have to lean toward it's pretty suspicious anyway.
Right. Well, that's cool. I appreciate that, brother. And thank you so much for calling in and being a part of the show. As always, it's a pleasure to hear from you.
Sure. Are we about out of time? I wanted to reference something from right at the beginning of the show when you were talking about the TR3Bs.
I mean, we got as much time as we want. So the floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, actually, I know all about that. There's a book out there called The Hunt for Zero Point that you all need to read.
Okay.
And it starts out with the weird technology that the Germans were working on in World War II, and how a lot of that technology probably ended up over here. Some of it didn't. Me and Wes did a show on that. Duke's Conspiracy Corner on YouTube. You can still find it. It's Operation High Jump Base 211. And it talks about how the Germans evacuated a lot of that technology to Antarctica to the base 211 that they had down there and kept working on it. But the Americans got their hands on some of it. And the Russians, likely got their hands on some of it, and have been like using that and supposedly connected to aliens, reverse engineering their stuff. Well, if you read The Hunt for Zero Point, they don't need an alien connection. All this technology was being put together by the Germans in World War II, and they've just had 70 years since then to work on it. And if you don't think that we've developed better technology, think about this for a second. In World War I, we had like double and triple wing planes, biplanes and triplanes flying around with cheesy machine guns and stuff on them. 1918, war was over. 39, World War II started. Okay, so by the end of World War II, 5-6 years later, you had Germans flying operational jet fighters, Me-262s, in combat.
Yeah.
Think of how fast that technology advanced in that, 30 years.
Right.
Okay? So we've had 70 years since then, and we haven't come up with anything better than jet technology. That's how we're still flying around, folks. Think about that for a minute. We got all these computers and all this extravagant technology now. Yeah. We haven't got any better propulsion systems than what we had in World War II. Does that make any logical sense?
Right. I agree. And in fact, there was a TFR host. There is a TFR host named Kev Baker, and he on his show he made a really, really incredible point. And this was quite a while ago, but he said, you think about it, and you look at telephone technology, what it was 50 years ago and what it is now. I mean, we basically, computer technology, computers that would fill whole, business buildings are now less powerful than what you're holding in your hand on your smartphone. Everything has just gone light years difference, but he said, but we're still lobbing missiles into space. He said, that doesn't make sense. And I thought, wow, that's
doesn't make sense
really brilliant. And yeah, I hadn't really.
And like you mentioned earlier in the show, you're talking about the Bell,
yes,
which is exactly what I'm about to reference here. They were working on that, had a whole bunch of technology involved in it, so it isn't specifically what we're referencing here, but it's sort of the springboard that launched a bunch of other things they wanted to work on. And what it really was is this big machine that was like 14 by 9 feet, looked kind of like an acorn reference. Texburg acorn, and had weird glyphs around the bottom of it. And it would kind of glow, and they had it like lashed to the floor with chains and stuff, because when it was actually running, it would lift off the floor. Mm-hmm. It would achieve it was a lifting body. It would achieve zero gravity, put it in layman terms. So what this thing was, is it had two great big huge containers of mercury that had been salted with radioactive isotopes, sort of like ovoid plate shaped, one on top of the other. One would spin a ridiculous speed in one direction, one would spin a ridiculous speed in the other direction, and both were electrified. Mm-hmm. And apparently this would produce all these weird effects that they were looking at. Well, this all led into the quantum physics thing, which, by the way, the Germans were already doing in World War II, and they thought that our standard physics, Einsteinian, was a joke, and weren't using it. So they were looking into all this other weird stuff that we weren't paying any attention to. Uh-huh. And they eventually, what we think now is that they were starting to work on zero-point energy, which we got figured out at this point. And they mentioned that earlier on when you were talking about it too. And what zero-point energy is harnessing quantum fluctuations in the background energy field of the entire universe. You take all these micro fluctuations, and if you can harvest the energy from them somehow and use it in the macro realm where we live, you have basically limitless energy. To put it in terms that people can understand, if you had a brick of space, let's say you could take a piece of space, now pretty much mostly empty vacuum space is, not a whole lot of matter there. Mm-hmm. So we'll just take a chunk of space the size of a brick, and we're going to use our zero-point energy field converter to draw all of the quantum fluctuations out of it and convert it into energy that we can use. That would give us enough energy to boil all the oceans on the Earth off 5 times.
Wow. Man.
And it doesn't require moving parts.
Yeah. That's really bizarre. But, I think that kind of stuff
there's
is
your
really
energy
cool.
source. Forget about nuclear reactors and all that antiquated dinosaur tech. That's not what they're using now.
Right. Man. They could just solve so many problems if they just make that mainstream.
Yeah, but they make so much money on petroleum and oil and everything, and this they wouldn't be able to make money on it other than selling the unit to you, which then would last forever and have limitless power.
Yeah.
Each house would have its own power system.
Right. Well, I'm sure they'd figure out what to charge us for next.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, they could just release the things. Go, okay, it's going to cost you half as much as a house. You'd be paying us for it for like half your life, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It still, eliminates the whole electric grid and eliminates the need for fossil fuels to pollute our atmosphere and run our cars around, because you can put the same thing in a car.
Yep.
It can have its own little energy source that never runs out.
Yep. Your cell phone would never die, that kind of stuff. That'd be all right.
Nope. Well, I don't know if you could make it quite that small, but I mean, you could have the charger in your house to keep recharging it all the time.
Sure. Very cool. Yeah.
But anyway, that's the whole thing with that. So once you've got that micro, small, super powerful energy system, then you've already figured out how to make a lifting body, which is just like the aerospace way of saying anti-gravity.
Uh-huh. Are you there? Or did we lose you? Uh-oh. I think we might have lost him.
The device is generating it. So it doesn't so much reverse gravity as it just creates its own little gravity bubble, which allows you to do weird things like UFOs do, where you can fly at like 15,000 miles an hour and make a right angle turn. If you're in a standard aircraft, you get splattered all over the interior of it. Assume the aircraft wouldn't get torn apart by the G forces.
Right.
But in one of these things, you're riding in your own little bubble of gravity and reality. So
Right.
inside the machine and slightly around it is moving, no matter what the outside of the machine is doing.
Right. Wow. So, so that's like a subspace field then, right? Creating your
Yeah, so that's why there's no inertia problems with them doing these weird, ridiculous maneuvers when they're flying at ridiculous speeds, doing right angle turns and stuff. Because they're in their own little bubble of reality, essentially flying around in their machine. So they're not subject to inertia that's on the outside of it.
That would be bizarre to be flying. That would feel like a video game, wouldn't it? Because you don't actually feel the forces,
Yeah, totally, because you wouldn't feel the movement at all from the inside.
Right.
It'd just be like whatever you could see on the outside or what the sensors are picking up is what you got to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that'd be pretty cool. Wow. That is awesome. You're right on it, brother. That's amazing.
Let me heavily recommend that book again to everybody in the audience that missed it. This was a guy who was involved in the aerospace industry for a long, long time. He used to write for James Aeronautics, and they turn out a regular magazine for basically, pilots and people in the aeronautics industry that want to bone up on what's the latest thing.
Uh-huh.
So he got to go around and talk to all these insider guys all the time and gathered up all this information, put the book out. He actually did like a couple part series, I think, on Discovery Channel or something about it, but it's Nick Cook, The Hunt for Zero Point.
Okay.
And if you guys want to know all about weird technology that's being kept away from the public, that is the book to start with.
Wow. Very cool. Thanks, brother. I appreciate all that.
You're very welcome.
It's always a pleasure,
I think
sir.
I've probably taken up more than enough time on your show and bored people to death already, so maybe I should get going here.
I don't think that's possible, but I appreciate any time you want to give us.
Well, yesterday I couldn't have gave you 5 minutes. I was really sick. Today I feel a lot better. I'm glad I could call in and add something to the discussion.
Well, I appreciate that, man. It's awesome to hear from you, and you always bring something amazing yourself. It's been a great night for call-ins. That's cool. I saw we had one other call-in, but I'm sorry. It was from Arizona. If that was you, Jess, I'm sorry, but we just ran out of time, and I see you're not still holding the line. So, but thanks, Duke. Have a great night, brother, and I will talk to you soon, I'm sure.
All right. Night, everybody. Enjoy the show. Thanks for letting me talk, Brett. Have a great evening.
And
don't hug the Wookiee.
Amen, brother. All right. Good night.
All right. Bye-bye.
I couldn't let Duke go without letting him drop his catchphrase. So, but yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. It was a bite full of bite-sized chunk of Paranormal Mayhem, but I thought it was an incredibly big helping as it turned out. And thanks for your call, Wes. I appreciate it. And thank you, Duke, for your call. And thank you all for being here. And thanks for Mr. Merkel. Tony Merkel stopped in the chat room. It was nice to see him as well. So it is fantastic. just surrounded by a lot of amazing people. You all are included in that math as well. So thank you all for being here. Everybody in the chat room, everybody listening that isn't chatting, you all are amazing. So thank you guys so much. That's going to wrap up the show for tonight. So have a great evening. Get a lot of good sleep, and I will be back tomorrow with the bedtime stories, of course, and then Friday I'll be back with Mr. Jerry Klein, who's going to be joining me. He's a Bigfoot researcher, and we're going to explore his journey and his experiences. And he's just a great guy, down to earth, has some amazing stories to share. And I'm really looking forward to having him on the show. So definitely tune in Friday night. And then Saturday, I think we'll get Don back and we can start tearing it up once again. It's always a pleasure, always a lot of fun. So wherever you are, 7 days a week, 7 p.m. Pacific time, there is always a portal here on the YouTube channel. And again, we're adding the 3 podcasts every week along with that. So now there are 10 episodes of the portal each week. You can get 3 of them via podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Monday through Friday. I'm going to continue doing these 7 days a week as long as I can. I think Don and I are starting to get a formula figured out for producing the podcasts on top of that. That seems to be working pretty good. So hopefully I can continue doing it all. But if not, I may cut a night or 2 of the bedtime stories if it just gets too much. But so far, so good, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you keep tuning in and checking them out. I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you're able. So you guys have a great night and sweet dreams. And I'll be back tomorrow night with the bedtime stories. So we'll see you then.